back to the Noida International Airport, it's a matter of great pride for us that we were selected to do this project and do the full project, including the land side and air side, as we say, which is the terminal building as well as the railways and ATCs. It's been a great opportunity. The ease of doing business, the speed at which approvals are done are phenomenal. For example, the Noida Airport, which we have done, we had tremendous, support from the government in anything and everything. I mean, we've had Chief Minister Yogi at site almost once in 6 months, if not more often. So I think states are becoming, the chief ministers are becoming more CEOs than political figures. And
Right. Do you think that with the kind of threats that are there on the tech establishments in the Middle East, which are facing a lot of threats, is that an opportunity for India?
No, definitely. There will be opportunities. We all, used to talk about China plus one. Maybe the future is Middle East plus one. India having that opportunity, something like that is developing very quickly.
Right.
There will be opportunities.
Hello and welcome to Fortune India in Conversation. I am Ashutosh Kumar and today I have with me Mr. Vinayak Pai, MD and CEO of Tata Projects, the company which implemented the Noida International Airport at Jewar. Thanks a lot, sir, for this conversation. The first question that I'd like to ask you, sir, is that Tata Projects as a company is involved in all kind of infrastructure projects, be it water, be it data centers, be it other infrastructure projects. But what does a project of the size and scale of the Noida International Airport bring for the company in terms of experience, in terms of exposure, in terms of implementing capability? Could you take us through the journey of, how has this journey actually been?
Thank you, Ashutosh, for having this conversation. I look forward to it. Going back to the Noida International Airport, it's a matter of great pride for us that we were selected to do this project and do the full project, including the land side and air side, as we say, which is the terminal building as well as the railways and ATCs. It's been a great opportunity. We have done one airport earlier in Prayagraj, but that was smaller. It was done in 11 months. But, this is a much larger international airport, greenfield at a, location where there was no infrastructure earlier. So to go and do something like this at record speed is something which I see as a once in a lifetime opportunities. We have had, iconic projects like the new Parliament building and Atal Setu, which we have built in infrastructure and amongst many others. But this one is really special because it's in an emerging field of aviation. So mobility is a strategic, imperative for Tata Projects, and aviation is one of the fastest growing markets. And for us to get the opportunity to do something like this and lay a foundation for growth in future aviation sector is really great opportunity.
Right. So if I were to ask you to just lay your basically cards on the table and tell us what were the really the big challenges, the big moments, the big achievements, so to say. Were there moments that when you thought that it's really getting challenging and somehow you pulled it off really? What were those experiences that have gone into building this massive infrastructure, sir?
When you get in a project of this scale and complexity, there are always those, aha moments, those great moments, and then the challenging moments where, the team really feels frustrated. So we have had a mix of both through the various phases of this project. I would say the challenges was initially to get started on construction because, as I said, it was an area in which not much of large scale construction was done.
Right.
So the groundwater table was much higher than anticipated. So the initial, push to really get it off the ground was a little bit of a challenge. But once we did that, the pace at which the civil work was done was phenomenal. I would say that We started construction sometime in late 2022, and in December 2024, we were able to land the airplane,
Exactly.
which was within
That
2 years.
calibration flight was done.
Calibration flight, which came in December 2024. So in 2 years to get that 4 kilometer runway to global standards, and runways are pretty complex, as you well know, have the ATC tower established and running. Was a phenomenal achievement. And then, of course, there were frustrations also, because the terminal building was much more complex in construction than we were able to anticipate. So a very intricate structural work, and a lot of lessons learned on that, of how to balance the architectural part with speed. Right? So fancy architecture, and how to make that at speed. So the structural work for the terminal building gave us a little bit of sleepless nights.
Right.
But finally, the team was able to come together and put things in a way where ultimately the project ended up successfully.
So, what are the unique features in the project, sir? I mean, what are the defining or the new age interventions that have been made?
So first of all, I would say it's a very beautiful airport. You would have seen some of the pictures of the inauguration.
Right.
It's not in your face beauty. It has its own rhythm. It's very future ready in a way. There's a lot of space for expansion, multiple runways, expansion of the terminal buildings from the present 13 million passengers to almost 80 million passengers. So
Right.
it's highly set up in a way which is future ready. The other features, I would say, is the sustainability is a very key differentiator of this project. It's a highly sustainable airport which was designed and built. And then the use of technology on this project was really special, right? From 4D, 5D BIM to having the full project on a digital stack,
Okay.
and using a lot of technologies for project design and monitoring.
Right.
Is some of the special features of this project.
Right, right. Sir, what I'd also like to ask you is an infrastructure project is not complete unless we have the desired level of connectivity around the project. So, when do you think that this particular airport will be fully accessible and for all kind of public transport? Because that becomes a very critical element as far as infrastructure is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, when you set up something which is going to be a large infrastructure and industrial hub, the connectivity comes over a period of time.
Right.
Right now, actually, the access is really good just off the Noida Expressway, the Yamuna Expressway. Within 5 minutes, you are at the terminal. So the road connectivity from Noida is really good. But eventually, the metro connectivity, the rapid rail connectivity, which has been planned, all that will really make it, a very great area to be in and work for. And
Right.
I think it's not just the airport. There is a whole city developing around it, with, electronic parks, with aviation parks, with a lot of, other developments which are planned.
Right.
So, as you know, that the first hub or the first connector is very important, which we have the advantage of having the Yamuna Expressway so close. And then the others will develop over a period of time. There are a lot of plans which are there, which UP government has been aggressively driving.
Right.
And this has the special attention of the Chief Minister Yogi himself. He's taken a lot of interest in not only how this project will come up, but how it will be connected eventually, and how it will become a large hub.
In fact, I was coming to that point as to how, state governments are also in a race for infrastructure. I mean, they want infra in their state, they want to create capacities. But before coming to that question, sir, where do the next opportunities lie? Because, we have seen in the budget after budget, the government is kind of pouring in a lot of capex as well. We have also seen the kind of initiatives and the tax breaks that the GCCs have been given. So, what is the long term? How does the long term horizon actually look like when it comes to infra and large scale projects?
So I would say that the opportunities are immense. And that is the reason Tata Projects has been focusing more on the India market. More than almost 90% of our business happens in the India market.
Right.
And we see the opportunity developing in multiple sectors. If you look at the big picture, India is moving towards a more product-based and manufacturing-based economy. Being the third largest zone, and brings with it a lot of compulsions to also not be a single dimensional economy. So, from an agricultural economy to a services economy to now a huge push towards a manufacturing economy is what India is navigating. And, that blueprint as it comes together comes with a, wide array of opportunities. So it comes with the backbone of infrastructure because, manufacturing needs a strong backbone of infrastructure. So the government has been very smart in developing a template of infrastructure first, and then, the industries will follow. So that brings with a lot of opportunities. We have seen successive budgets, upping the capex in infrastructure, 11 lakh crores plus every year.
Right.
And
Plus the debt to the states that they give for the infrastructure.
exactly. So, plus what happens in the states. So, yeah, almost the government spends, both the states and central government spend, 17, 18 lakh crore of rupees in infrastructure in a year, which is a big opportunity.
Which are the sectors that look very promising?
So within that, I think mobility looks very promising. The urbanization, which brings with it very strong connectivity. For us, metro is a very strong sector. There are multiple cities in which tier 1, tier 2 cities in which metros are planned.
Right.
Very strong growth in that sector. Having the first real metro established early in the century, and in 25 years, we have almost 1,000 kilometers of metros across various cities and growing. Aviation with 75 airports 10 years ago to now 150, 160 airports, and again growing. These are sectors of infrastructure in which we see a very strong future, and these sectors also have a technical and technological complexity which we like to play. We as big players sometimes struggle to do mass work like a simple road or expressway because there are a lot of capabilities developed with tier 2 players who can actually do it. So we try to do technologically and technically complex projects, and metros, airports bring that level of balance to us.
Right.
The power sector is growing at rapidly. You mentioned data centers, they need huge amount of power. So,
And water as well.
and power and water. So the power sector is tremendous, seeing tremendous growth. So, our power generation, transmission and distribution businesses are doing great. And then, as I said, the private capex in manufacturing brings huge opportunity. Data centers is a big business for us.
Right.
We are one of the only company probably working for all the 3 global hyperscalers.
Right.
And a lot of, other developers putting up data centers. And then the electronic and semiconductor manufacturing, which is really very complex in terms of the clean room requirements and really very advanced manufacturing, high growth areas for us.
So, sir, what I'd like to understand from you over here is that we are seeing a lot of developments happening in the Middle East. There are downside risks also for overall for the Indian economy, for the global economy. But are there some gains also that we may get by virtue of being a very neutral destination? And do you think that with the kind of threats that are there uh, on the tech establishments in the Middle East, which are facing a lot of threats, is that an opportunity for India, so to say, and by virtue of it, for companies like you?
No, definitely. There will be opportunities. We all, used to talk about China plus one. Maybe the future is Middle East plus one. India having that opportunity, something like that is developing very quickly.
Right.
There will be opportunities. Yeah, I think global organizations and global investors are looking at multiple things when they invest. They are looking for political stability. They are looking for geographic stability. They are using for a stable market. India brings a lot of these dynamics to the table, and very soon, and also the very neutral political alignment across the globe is something which will really favor India's future.
So
as a
this
destination.
kind of neutral environment, which are the sectors? I mean, GCCs and data centers is one, but where do you see the future thrust coming in with the kind of with the possibilities of people shifting bases to India?
Yeah, I think definitely data centers is a big driver.
Hmm.
The aluminum manufacturing, as you see, and the metals manufacturing, that will grow.
Right.
The core sectors will grow in India. The power requirement, which again I come back to that, the power and water required for all this
Right.
will be a huge opportunity for growth. And the data centers market is huge.
Right.
And, already we are hearing from the hyperscalers that the big capex plan they have will be really increased by at least 50% based on the present geopolitical map. And then, you know, the the electronics and semiconductor manufacturing is a very new and bold step by the government. The incentive structure, the ISM 1.0, and very soon ISM 2.0 to come. METI and that ministry has been really driving global investments and have been very successful in attracting a lot of global investors. At the same time, encouraging a lot of Indian companies to start investing in advanced manufacturing sector.
Right.
That is a great
Yeah,
opportunity.
but sir, in the medium to short term, I mean, short to medium term, what kind of challenges do these disruptions bring for the company itself in terms of rising input costs, in terms of companies shelving their own, capex and capex plans, so to say, deferring their plans. So, how does this translate into your business basically?
It does affect any geopolitical instability like this brings with it further challenges. The investors get a little bit, jittery about making fresh investment plans.
Right.
The good thing for India is the government has not signaled any slowdown in their capex based on this.
Yeah.
The projects remain strong. Even on the private capex side, a lot of investments and a lot of commitments have already been made. It's now about developing a supply chain to support those commitments. The amount of construction which is happening and projects which are ongoing, we are not seeing slowdown in any of the projects where we are going.
Okay, as of
From the
now.
customer side, we have not seen any slowdown. Anyone coming and saying, hey, we are reconsidering this project, none of that we have seen. Of course, the fresh investments which were being made, people are a little cautious, but the ongoing investments are pretty
On
strong,
track, basically,
on
as of
track.
now.
In fact, it is for us to deliver those projects, given the various challenges which uncertainty like this brings. The petroleum prices over a period of time, how they will pan out, the availability of petroleum products. Of course, we had the LPG shortage, so we had to scramble at each of our sites to give comfort to our laborers that their cooking fuel is available. They are a critical component of our success on projects. So we had to take care of that aspect. Of course, the shipping lines will get backed up for a significant period of time, I believe, and that will bring with it supply chain challenges, especially on the electrical equipment side, which is in high demand. So some of the critical components coming from Europe, we'll have to look at alternates. So yes, I mean, there are supply chain challenges, there are energy related challenges, but nothing earth shaking at this.
So, what I'd like to understand from you, if this vegetation crisis continues for say 5 months, 6 months, there are no indications of the issue getting any relief on that front. So, what could be the probable impact on EPC players and infrastructure players?
I think to an extent, I would say that the impact will be there, but it won't be a very severe impact like, say, a COVID type impact is what we anticipate. Because India also has a very strong domestic supply chain. Many of, as I said, the electrical components which are today very critical, they are all manufactured by global players in India. So there are only some critical components which come in, but a lot of manufacturing happens in India. So we hope we will be able to, manage the supply chain challenges. Of course, getting the confidence to the labor, which I think the government has been always good at, managing the expectation of the masses that they will not face long-term disruption. For us, the supply chain and labor, these are two major components.
Right.
Once we have a reasonable confidence on these two things, the projects don't really suffer. So
Right.
as of now, we think we will be able to, with not a major impact, there will be impact, but not a very major COVID-like impact. We still will be able to manage another 4 to 6 months if this war unfortunately goes that long.
What is your, the current, the amount of the projects, the order book position like, and what kind of growth are you anticipating, sir?
So we have significantly improved our order book. Of course, April is the month when we will close our books and we will be able to announce. But I would say that we have had very strong order booking in the last fiscal year.
Okay.
And our order book has actually gone up.
Right.
We expect to end the year at a order book of nearly 50,000 crores. And very solid order book in things like electronic, semiconductor manufacturing, data centers. Premium real estate is really picking up in the major metros. We have won multiple projects along that. We see that as a very strong opportunity. The power market, which is again going through a significant uptick, is a big opportunity for us. And data centers has been a major part of our a higher order book.
Right, right. So coming to the last question, sir, as I was in fact mentioning and referring to the states, how is the race for infrastructure in the states panning out? What we are experiencing is that infrastructure, the state governments are taking infra very seriously. Which are the states which you feel are very proactive and are very prompt in terms of clearances, in terms of approvals, and what is happening on ground, sir, in your experience?
See, I would hesitate to name states because, there is public data which tells which states are leading. And, we don't see anything different on the ground. And we operate in most of these states. But the great thing is, there are some states which are really being very aggressive in terms of attracting investments and providing the required ecosystem. So, the ease of doing business, the speed at which approvals are done, are phenomenal. For example, the Noida Airport, which we have done, we had tremendous, support from the government in anything and everything. You had Chief Minister Yogi at site almost once in 6 months, if not more often, right? And very
all those
proactive in terms
routine
of
inspections and all.
And solving problems, not only inspecting, and very critical, interventions to solve problems. So, solving problems, ease of doing business, regulatory support, even fiscal support in emerging, fields, tax supports. So I think states are becoming, the chief ministers are becoming more CEOs than political figures. And it shows in some of the states where things are really going very fast.
Right. Okay, sir, on that note, thanks a lot for this wonderful conversation. So that's a wrap on this issue of In Conversation. For more news and updates, keep following Fortune India.